What's up, everybody? Today on Chasing Dust, I'm going to be answering your questions, anything and everything you want to know pertaining to what I do when it comes to off-roading, my job, the places I've been, some questions about my truck, anything and everything. I'm going to be answering your questions right here. Stick with us. What is up, YouTube? Matt Moghaddam here, aka DesertChief, your truck editor at Driving Line, and welcome to another episode of Chasing Dust. So right now we're in the middle of October. It's kind of a weird time between Off-Road Expo and SEMA, where I get a lot of my real work done. I don't have to go to so many events, but looking forward to going to SEMA in a couple weeks. And then after that, I'm going to be going to Riyadh, actually, Saudi Arabia. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that trip coming up here. Now, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. A couple days ago, I put up a few posts on my social media pages on my Instagram and my Facebook, giving you guys an open forum to ask me any question that you want, whether it has to do with my truck, the places that I've been, some of my off-roading experiences, stuff about my job, basically anything you guys want to know, just ask me on that post, either on Facebook or Instagram, and then I actually made a list of them on my phone. And today I'm going to be answering a few of those questions. A lot of them were really in-depth, great questions, and I'm excited to share with you guys some of the answers that I came up with for these questions. So you're going to hear some Instagram screen names as well as some Facebook names, and that is going to tell you who asked the question. But for now, let's get to this list of questions. I can't wait to answer these because it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, our first question comes in from 21DJG3 on Instagram. How old were you when you first did an overnighter in the desert, and when did you decide this is it, this is what I'm going to do? That is a fantastic question, I just have to say, because it's actually one of the things that I like to talk about a lot and, you know, kind of inspire others to get into this stuff that I do with off-road, and, you know, it comes from nothing. So basically, I was about 20 years old when I first got into off-roading. My dad actually had a 2007 Land Rover LR3, and while, you know, it's not necessarily a rock crawler or a desert runner, it is a pretty good all-around off-road vehicle. Kind of on the expensive side. If you break something, it's, you know, not cheap to fix it, but very capable off-road. And we had taken it out a couple times together up to Big Bear and stuff like that, but I really wanted to kind of explore the desert a little bit more, and he didn't want to go with me, so he just handed me the keys and said, here, go have fun. So I took the Land Rover and two of my buddies, packed it full of camping equipment. No idea what we were doing. None of us had ever been to that part of the desert. We actually headed out for Anza Borrego, Fish Creek Wash more specifically. And we just camped there for one night, set up a fire and a tent and stuff, and then the next morning we packed everything back up and went out and kind of explored some of the slot canyons back there, like Sandstone Canyon, which remains one of my favorite places to visit and go off-roading in the desert. If you haven't been there, check it out. Sandstone Canyon inside of Fish Creek Wash. It's pretty amazing, and the wash itself is beautiful. Really high walls and really narrow passages to drive through. It's unlike anything you'll see in Southern California, so it's really cool. So that was the first time I did an overnighter in the desert, and of course, subsequently, I've done tons of them, and that was really just the first one to get my feet wet. It was a lot of fun to kind of see how that was. Now, to answer the second part of your question, when did I decide this was it, this is what I want to do? That had to be probably the first trip that I made out to Ocotillo Wells with my first truck, my own Tacoma that I built. It's actually that truck behind me right here. What I actually did was I organized a Tacoma meet out there in the desert, and we all went around and cruised around Ocotillo Wells and spent one night out there as well. So that was a lot of fun. And when I got back from that trip and I saw the photos and videos and all the new friends that I had made, I really, you know, that was kind of the moment when I realized this off-road thing is like a whole nother tier of freedom when it comes to owning a vehicle. Like, obviously when you turn 16, you get your first car or whatever, there's a whole world of freedom that opens up to you. You can go anywhere you want. You don't have to be dependent on family to take you places. So that freedom in itself is huge. But then I realized that there's a whole nother side to that, where if you have an off-road vehicle, you can go places where most people can't. And when I first did that trip with my Tacoma, that's when I realized this is it for me. This is what I want to do. And from there is where I made a career out of it. Okay, so these are a little bit random and mixed up, but the next one comes from Travis A from Facebook. What's better, IBeams or A-arms? So this is like the age-old question that desert racers or desert drivers, off-road enthusiasts, always seem to have this debate about A-arms versus IBeams. And it's not without good reason. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to both. If you ask me personally, for off-road use, I like IBeams better because it's a better value for what you get. Yeah, some people are going to say that it's really cheap travel and, you know, they don't drive as well and all that. But to be honest, really, IBeams, if you don't know about them, Ford developed this technology of a twin I-beam suspension way back in like the 70s. And it had gone through the paces all the way through like the late 90s is when they stopped putting them on most vehicles, although some of the newer Super Duties into the 2000s also had I-beams. So they are a great way of getting travel out of a truck without spending a ton of money. However, because of that constant camber change through the travel path, they don't drive as stable or as nice as an IFS A-arm setup that you would find like on my Toyota or something else, or newer Rangers have them as well. So yes, A-arms will drive better on the street and they will drive a little bit straighter off-road. Usually they're a little bit more in control. However, there's a certain style to driving an I-beam vehicle off-road, and if you're asking about off-road capability, for me, I think I-beams are better off. But, you know, a lot of people are going to have a different answer for that, but that's just my own personal opinion. Okay, our next question comes from TryHardPhoto on Instagram, and the question is, do you have any advice for photographers trying to grow their network and or follower count? So this kind of ties back into like my social media side of things and what I've done with my own pages as both a photographer and an editor for Driving Line and marketing for several other companies over the years. But really, the advice that I can give you is get out there as much as you can and take as many photos as you can at races or going out like big weekends to the desert where a lot of people are out there, and put up as much of your content as you can on your social feeds. Tag as many people as you can, because that's going to bring those people to see your photos and then share it with their friends, and that's kind of how your reach grows and people start to associate your style of photography and what you do with your name. So that's kind of what people, I think, did with me. And I do all kinds of stuff, everything from, you know, just regular rally racing to off-road to, you know, hot rods. I'm kind of all over the place, so it's really funny because some of my followers are off-road people and some of them are, you know, car fans and stuff like that. And I like to think that I kind of bridge that gap a little bit, but when it comes to any advice I can give out, just put out as much of your content as you can and just keep it consistent, because that's going to help people recognize who you are down the line. Next question comes from Instagram, MB Motorworks. Out of all the trucks you've had or built, which is your favorite? That's a really tough question. I've had probably a dozen and a half trucks that I've owned or built, you know, with the help of friends and shops that I work with. And I'd have to say my favorite one to date is still going to be Scarlett. I know that it's, you know, probably because I still own it and I like that truck a lot, but I didn't build Scarlett, you know, for the most part. As I mentioned in one of my episodes previously about how I got that truck, it was mostly built when I purchased it, but there was a strategic reason for that. Is I'm not a fabricator, and I wanted to buy a truck that actually had all of this cage and suspension stuff done correctly, so that way I didn't have to go buy and start a new, you know, build and have someone else do it for me. So Scarlett is a great platform. As soon as it gets a new motor, whenever that's going to be, and a new front suspension, rear suspension, that truck is going to be unstoppable. And it has to date been the most fun that I've had in any vehicle out there, with having long travel, 4-wheel drive, air conditioning, you know, still has all the nice pieces of owning a vehicle. You can still kind of daily drive it if you want to. Although it's a manual, it kind of sucks here in Southern California with our traffic, but you could if you wanted to. So that truck is really an all-around vehicle where you can take out the rocks, you can take it to the desert, you can take it in the snow. It just kind of does everything, and I really like that aspect of Scarlett. So I'd have to say my current truck, my 91 Toyota pickup, that's my favorite truck. Okay, our next question comes from Instagram. TJ3 asks, where is the coolest place you've taken the Toyota? And I assume you're talking about Scarlett. There's a lot of places that I've taken that truck. Hard to say the coolest one because everywhere that I go is kind of different in its own way. But I think off-roading through Kings Canyon National Park and Sequoia National Park, in that area, there's a couple of trails over there that go through the forest and they go up to like Buck Rock Lookout. I really enjoyed off-roading in those areas because to me it's different. It's not just the same desert stuff that I always do. It kind of offered a different challenge. There was some crawling involved. There was, a lot of calculated driving to do in that truck. And then you just take that picture of like this pre-runner in the middle of the forest, like up in the mountains, and it kind of looks out of place, but it's cool. So I really liked that area. It was kind of smoky up there because they had some fires up there when I was there last time. But I've done that twice now, and every time I come back from that trip, I just go, man, I'd love to do that trail again. So yeah, I'd have to say probably Kings Canyon. And you know what? I can't wait to do more of that off-road in the mountains and stuff like that. I really want to go to Alaska. I want to go through Canada, the Yukon, a lot of places that I visited on my Alcan 5000 trip, which of course I was driving a Jeep JL, but I'd love to go back and do that with my Toyota someday. All right. From Facebook, the next question comes from Blaze D, and Blaze asks, what has off-roading as a whole given you in life to help impact others? Another great question. Thanks, Blaze. I would have to say that the working in off-road in this career has given me the ability to share some of these experiences and the places that I go to with people who have never done something like this before. It seems almost out of reach for a lot of people because they think, oh, I don't have an off-road truck, I don't have any friends that do, I can't go to some of these places. But really showing them that you don't need to have some fully kitted out, fully built Jeep or a Toyota or a Raptor or whatever just to get to some of these places. All you need is really just some all-terrain tires, maybe a small leveling kit. And really what it comes down to is the experience itself. It doesn't matter, how built your vehicle is or what difficulty of a trail it can do. Just getting yourself out there and, enjoying what Mother Nature has to offer and kind of experiencing something that's outside of the norm of the day-to-day city life. Inspiring people to get out there and do that has been great for me. It's helped me make a lot of enthusiasts who previously weren't. A lot of my friends who are now into off-roading never were before they actually met me and went with me for the first time or went somewhere together, and it turned them into like a lifelong off-road fan, and that's to me really important because it helps grow our hobby and it helps promote correct use of our land, which is what we always want to promote. So I really like the fact that I'm able to inspire others to do that sort of thing. Our next question comes from Randy on Instagram, _Randy, and his question is, what is the most expensive tow you've ever had? And I know why you're asking that because you were there, Randy. So last year, actually was it this year? It was this year. This year, early on, I think it was in January, we went out and wanted to do a photo shoot with a couple of friends out in the desert. Mark Fermi from IBeams, my buddy Mike from Driving Line, Randy, and my brother, all the four of us went out and we wanted to do some videos and photos. We had Tim Sutton with us who was taking all of our photos, and Mike said, why don't we go to Bombay Beach and Salton Sea and set up out there and just take some pictures? And I was like, okay, cool. I've never been there. I've always heard of it. Looks like a cool spot maybe for some pictures up along the edge of the Salton Sea there. What I didn't know was that the ground around that area is like mush, and I had no idea how soft it was underneath this really thin crust of salt and I presume fish bones. underneath it was like chocolate pudding. It was really, really, really soft and thick stuff under there. So we went out and Mark got stuck for a little bit, so I tried to get in front of him and hook up a strap to him, and I ended up getting completely buried all 4 tires. Mark was completely buried all 4 tires. We were there for probably about 4 or 5 hours trying to dig our trucks out, and the more we dug, the deeper these trucks sank. And it's really, really, really saline water there. They call it hypersaline, and it rusts everything that's exposed metal like overnight. They call it like flash rust. So we were kind of freaking out because we had no other options, and we were probably about 300 yards away from the hard pack where anything could pull us out, you know, without getting buried as well. So we kind of ran out of options. We called a wrecking company that was local to that area, and the guys, you know, just from talking to them for 5 minutes on the phone, it seemed like they knew exactly where we were, because a lot of people make the same mistake. There was a ton of other tire tracks around us where you could see other people had gotten stuck. It was just, you know, we were being stupid and weren't thinking about it, and it just ended up being this whole ordeal for like 6-7 hours total. The tow itself was, the wrecker was actually up on the hard pack, and he ran a 300-foot winch line out to us, and then had a 30-foot snatch strap tied around my truck on the front end. As he was pulling the winch line in, I'm in 4 low, just kind of sawing the wheel back and forth and pedaling it to get myself up and out of this thing. And once I did, it was like probably about a 30-minute, you know, pull just to get me off of that area. And then we had to go back and get Mark. And I think the total for that tow was like $750 for both trucks. Worth it because we got our trucks back. But thanks, Mark, for throwing your credit card at that guy and getting us out of there, because I feel like we would have been there for like 2 days if we didn't do that. So not a fun experience, but you know, it was still one of those days where I will never forget. Okay, our next question comes from Roya M on Facebook. It's my mom. What are your best and worst experiences, and what did you learn? Oh, it's such a mom question. Yeah, my mom follows me on social media, sorry. So I would have to say my best experience with off-road has to be, if I have to narrow it down to just one, that's pretty tough. But I'd have to say probably pre-running the Baja 1000 and then chasing the race during the race for media was probably one of my favorite experiences, the best experience I've ever had. There's just so much stuff down there in Baja, which is different from up here. And when you're racing against the clock to you know, get to the next pit stop where the guys are going to be coming in with the truck and try to beat them there and then beat them to the next one, it was just a lot of challenging, fun driving that we did with off-road vehicles. The worst experience I ever had off-roading was probably the day where I almost rolled my Tacoma, this truck here, down a cliff when we were running Bronco Peak down in San Diego. That's going to be in, gosh, what was the name of that area? Coral Canyon Off-Road OHV Park. There's a trail there called Bronco Peak, and it's rated as a very difficult trail, Black Diamond, and I was with a bunch of my Jeep buddies, which had solid axles and lockers and 37s, and they talked me into just taking my IFS long travel 35-inch tire Tacoma on this trail with no lockers. And at the time I had pretty bald tires, so it just wasn't a good idea for me to be out on that trail. And it started to rain, but I gave in to peer pressure and I did it anyway. And it ended up being about a 14-hour deal. We started the trail at noon and we got off the trail at 2 in the morning. And the trail was only like 2.5 miles long. So you can imagine just how slow going, how many areas we got hung up. You know, there was one spot where, like I said, I was almost rolling down a cliff. Basically, we had to have 3 guys wrap an ARB snatch strap around my B-pillar through my windows and pull down just to hold the truck from going over. And it was going to go over on the driver's side. We had to get myself out of that, and it ended up doing a tandem pull from the front with 2 TJs pulling me from the front, and my buddy Austin's JK in the back with a winch line going to my rear bumper in case I started to go down. He would hold me as an anchor. He's winching out as they were pulling me forward, and in one smooth motion somehow we pulled it off and I got out of there. But that was by far probably one of the scariest moments of me having to get back in that truck and drive it out, knowing that I'm sitting so pitched over and at any moment I could just tumble down that cliff. And I was really, really over off-roading at that point. But what I learned from that experience is there's going to be times where you're going to be tempted to do things with your vehicle because of friends who tell you can do it, or people calling you names for not wanting to do something, or whatever it is. In the end, don't give in to that crap. Don't give in to that peer pressure, because it's your build, it's your vehicle. If you're confident in it, do it. If you're not confident in it, just stay out and save yourself the headache and the problems, because they're not going to be the ones to help you rebuild your truck in the end. They're not going to be the ones to give you some money to buy parts that you may have broken just because you went and did this thing. It's just not worth it. So if you feel like it's a bad idea, it probably is. Okay, our next question comes from Instagram, DJ_Tonka15. For the younger generation just starting out with their first truck, what do you think is the most important upgrade and gear to have with you on your average desert trip and truck, such as recovery equipment first, etc., etc.? So I think that for anyone who's starting out, younger generations who are starting to get into off-road, the things you want to make sure you have with you for sure is going to be obviously a spare tire. It's very important anywhere you go. I don't even drive down the street around town without a spare tire, just because I don't want to get caught up, with a puncture or something and be stuck with it. Definitely want to have like a strap of some sort inside your vehicle in case somebody does get stuck. That has saved my butt and my buddies' butts a lot. Just having a single strap and a couple of shackles laying around inside the truck. Definitely want to have that with you. As far as modifications go, I don't necessarily think that you have to have anything done to the truck just to get out there and enjoy the desert. Obviously, it's going to dictate how fast you can drive over terrain or what kinds of terrain you can drive over. But for the most part, the desert's pretty easy to get through as long as you have a good set of tires underneath your truck and with plenty of tread, and you have a spare. And make sure you have some extra, fluids. I usually carry a bottle of distilled water with me in case my radiator starts to overheat or, something happens. I carry that. I usually carry about a quart of oil, just some of the normal things you'd have for your motor. But that's going to really come down to your rig and some of the weaknesses of certain vehicles, certain platforms. They're going to require you to carry extras of certain things. For my Toyota, it was always coolant, oil, and make sure I had a recovery strap and make sure that I had some shackles to tie to. That's really the basic things that I would take with me, just like on a one-day desert trip. Next question comes from Moghaddam07, and the question is, what is one of your biggest goals that you have yet to reach? That's a great question. One of the biggest goals that I have that I've yet to reach, but I think that I could pull this off within my lifetime. It's a pretty big one. I tend to dream pretty big. My biggest dream is to take desert off-roading to every major desert in the entire world. And when I mean every desert, I mean every desert. So from the Atacama in South America to the Sahara in Africa to the Gobi in Mongolia and China. I even recently found out that Antarctica is considered a desert. So is it feasible for me to get my truck down there? Probably not, so I'm probably going to skip that one. But I want to take desert off-roading to everywhere around the globe. I want to be with my little Toyota truck like in the middle of the Namibian desert. Some of the most amazing scenery out there, and I really would love to take this style of off-road driving that we have in our little corner of the world in Southern California and take it to all these different places where it's usually not something you would find out there. So that would be really cool, is to visit every major desert and off-road my truck there. I think someday I can pull it off. So our next question comes from Derek L from Facebook, and he asks, who built your roll cage? And what reputable builders would you recommend? So my roll cage was built, my truck was built at Richer Racing. It was owned by a fabricator there whose name is Mike Sheehan, and Mike was the one that built the truck, and he obviously did the cage in that truck as well. As far as a fabricator that I could recommend or a builder that I could recommend, there's a ton of different ones out here in SoCal, and it really comes down to what you're building and what it is that you want. out of your rig, and then you can kind of narrow down the ones that specialize more in what you're looking for. So there's so many out here that I couldn't just name off like 4 or 5 and tell you, with confidence, these are the people who are going to be able to do your, what you want best. But if you have any specifics for your rig, go ahead and just send me a DM, and I will try to get you a couple of specific shops that are going to work better for what you want. Our next question comes from Instagram user Nick Vernon, and his question is, I have a 93 pickup. What is the best suspension to start making it a pre-runner? So Nick, I would say that it depends on if you have a 6-lug truck, a 4-wheel drive, or a 5-lug 2-wheel drive truck. But either way, if you're looking for a good all-around front suspension for a pre-runner build, I really like Total Chaos. I've used them on several of my vehicles. Scarlett currently has a Total Chaos kit on there for the 4-wheel drive. They make a 2-wheel drive kit. They also make kits for almost any Toyota out there. So Total Chaos is a great company to go with. They have a lot of really good suspension products, and they're proven both in race applications and just cruising the desert and having fun, and you can daily it all day long, no problem. When it comes to the rear suspension, an easy way to build is to go off of a set of leaf packs, like from Deaver or Atlas. They sell like a spring under leaf pack underneath the axle, and that will give you a lot more travel. You can run like a 16-inch shock, which is pretty easy. You just build some hoops inside your bed, and that's an overall really simple pre-runner build that you could do at home. Our next question comes from Don Manuel 97 on Instagram, asking me how much was my truck. So kind of a hard question to answer because I didn't pay for it. I actually traded another vehicle for it, but if I had to put a value on the trade that I made for that vehicle, it'd be something around $12,000 to $13,000, give or take. So yeah, it wasn't some astronomical number, and it was a pretty simple truck when I bought it. It was just a V6 with an old Total Chaos kit on there, 35-inch tires, some old 35s, some old KMC wheels, and it ran, and it ran well. That was really what I wanted. It was something that was running and had a good platform to build off of. Next question comes from, it's 21DJG3 again. Nice, man. 2 questions. Didn't even catch that the first time around. Your second question is, best out-of-the-box production all-around off-road vehicle. So this one may hurt some feelings. But being a Toyota guy, I'm always paying attention to what Toyota is doing with their off-road performance models, aka TRDs, TRD Pros. They have a lot of really cool products that are coming out, a lot of cool options that come with these trucks and make them very, very capable. Obviously, Ford has their Raptor, which is extremely capable right out of the box. I've seen guys do some crazy stuff with Raptors, stuff that you would have to spend, $10,000, $15,000 on a stock F-150 just to get it to do something a stock Raptor can do. And then there's Jeep, which lately has been putting out some pretty amazing, vehicles. From the JL to the Gladiator, Rubicons, I have to say that I'm probably most impressed right now with like a JL Rubicon. I drove one for about 6,000 miles, give or take, from from the tip of Alaska down all the way to SoCal, and it was a great vehicle. I mean, in every way possible. Front and rear lockers, solid axle front end, but it drove nicely. It didn't drive like your old solid axle trucks. Comfortable, lots of space on the inside, a lot of really cool creature comforts like heated steering wheel, heated seats, and then all of the off-road stuff that comes along with it, as well as being so open to modification. But I think out of the box, if you were to go with a brand new vehicle and you weren't going to modify it, you just wanted one vehicle to buy to go off-roading with, I'd probably say a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, a brand new one, or even a Gladiator if you really wanted that longer wheelbase. Both of those are great, great options. So I know coming from a Toyota guy, it seems sacrilegious, but honestly, you can't deny it when they are innovating so fast and they're coming out with stuff like this 8-speed transmission that drives so nicely. I mean, if you guys have to drive it to really know what I'm talking about, but it's like driving a sports car, but it's capable off-road. So it's pretty cool. I'd have to say the Jeep takes the top of the notch for that one. Okay, and I'm gonna do one more question. This is from my buddy Spool Bus Ben on Instagram. Ben is one of the guys that works over at Diesel Power Products, and he is the host of America's Diesel Podcast. Ben does some awesome stuff. Let's see. Ben says, "Tell me how you really feel about people claiming their local burger spot is better than In-N-Out." Okay. This has nothing to do with off-roading, but for some of you guys who might know, I'm kind of like a burger review guy, I guess. I travel to a lot of places, and every time I land somewhere, someone says, "Oh my gosh, you have to try this place. Their burgers are amazing." And then it's always followed by this one line that I can't stand where they say, "It's better than In-N-Out." So that prompted me to try it the first time this happened. Of course, they were horribly mistaken. There's no way that was better than In-N-Out Burger here we have in California. So I decided to just keep doing this with other places that I visit when people tell me. You guys always DM me, hey, check out this place. They have really good burgers here. It's better than In-N-Out. So, there's nowhere that I've been yet that has even gotten close. So I don't know if that discourages you guys from sending me these suggestions for places to eat when I travel. But yeah, it really kind of irks me because the fact is that a friend of mine once explained it this way. If they're comparing themselves to In-N-Out as the standard to begin with, then it's pretty evident that In-N-Out is the best overall. So, sorry if that kind of hurts your feelings with your local burger joint, but frankly, I don't care. Give me a double-double with animal-style fries, and I'm good. That about wraps up our list of the questions you guys sent. I want to thank you guys for asking all these awesome questions. A lot of really good stuff in here. I was happy to go through and kind of off the cuff answer these questions. I hadn't thought about any of my answers beforehand, so of course this is all just kind of spilling out of my mouth as I was going along. Very unfiltered, but I think a lot of times you get the most honest answer out of people when you hear them unfiltered. So I didn't want to think about these answers before I answer them on camera. So I appreciate you guys sending in your questions. Next week I'm going to be doing some installs. You guys just saw a video that we put up. I was unboxing a new Harbor Freight winch, which is their Apex Badlands series winch, which is brand new, just came out, and it's a 12,000 pound winch. So I did the unboxing video. I'm going to be installing it on a rig this week and hopefully torture testing it in the real world next week out in the desert somewhere if I can find the time and the place to go do it. And that's going to be another video coming up on Driving Line. So make sure you guys subscribe to our channel because it is going to be chock full of a lot of new content, especially with SEMA coming up and a couple of different, trips that I have planned coming up for the next month and a half, 2 months. Hit that subscribe button. Also hit that bell icon so you guys get notified every time we have a new video coming out. We have a couple of new series. We have Inside Line with Ali Mansour. He's our senior off-road editor on the East Coast. Does a lot of really cool builds and has a lot of friends with really nice builds. And then of course Cars and Kelly, which is our other vlog series. And Kelly goes out to some of the coolest, supercar, hypercar meets. She's got a lot of a wealth of information on BMWs, and she even got to interview the world's only Mystic Chrome Ford GT owner, which is pretty cool. But that's gonna wrap things up for us this time around. I really like this, kind of interview thing. If you guys like this, Q&A thing, let me know, and maybe we'll do another one in the future. Maybe we'll do it in a different setting. Maybe I'll be out in the desert when I do it, whatever. I'd love to try new things and just check it out. Once again, you guys, Matt Moghaddam, aka Desert Chief on Instagram. Follow me on there if you guys don't already. Here with another episode of Chasing Dust, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.